Hello and welcome to Model Kit Stuff, and today, by request, I'm going through the different type of knife blades and what they're used for. Hello and welcome to Model Kit Stuff, and today's video focus on knife blades and the different types and what they're used for. This is a video that was requested a little while ago now. So these are some of my remaining X-Acto knife blades from a big set I got when I was 15, which came with a plane and a hacksaw and sanding block, 3 different types of knives which I still have. There's 2 of them, and then there's a chunkier handled one which you could slot a saw into as well, a razor saw. And yeah, I mean, these have done me since I was 15 and I'm still using them now. They're fantastic tools. And you got a lot of blades with it, as well as some punches as well. And I've still got the punches somewhere. 1 or 2 of the blades have gone walkies, but these are the remaining ones, and I thought we'd talk about those. And if you've had one of these sort of craft sets, you're perhaps wondering what some of these are for. So let's go through them. To be honest, if I put my hand there, everything on the left, from a modelling point of view, you're probably not interested in, well, certainly from a plastic modelling point of view. If I move my hand over that way, then we could argue that you're interested in these if you do plastic and wood modelling, maybe. But you're certainly not going to be interested in these funny shaped ones. And these are for stripping weld rod. So quite why they get put in with a craft set, I don't know. I guess it's to cover all sorts of different jobs that people might do with the set, but I have never used them for stripping weld rod. I have used 1 or 2 of them for scraping wood and things like that. I seem to remember when I was a teenager using this one particularly to scrape out the valley that I wanted for a stream in a wood base. So I've certainly never used them as intended. I've still got them. They're still razor sharp, but yeah, never really used those ones. So all of those are for doing different shapes for doing the same function, and I don't really know what stripping weld rod means, but that's what they're for. Now these ones you might have a use for if you do wooden ship modelling and you've got some of the very old kits maybe, or you build from scratch. These are gorgeous, and we've got 3 different shapes here. So we've got the classic V-shaped one, which is still razor sharp. Then we've got the wide V-shaped one here. So I think that's D, that's E, and then we've got this rounded one here. And they're basically for making furrows and shapes in wood, for, as the name suggests, gouging out when you're wood carving. So the wood carver's tools really, but not really at a modeller's scale, to be honest. More for full-size wood carving, I would suggest. But you might find a use for them as a wood modeller. I've got to say, I've used them once or twice since I was 15, fairly literally. But I keep them in my box of blades, and you can see they're starting to show their age now. But as modelers, these are the ones that we're most interested in, and you're probably most familiar with these as well. And some of you, I have no doubt, know exactly what they're all for. But if you're new to the hobby, you might not. So let's start with the general purpose blade, which is that one. So yeah, this one is called the general purpose blade, and it can be used for multiple purposes, and it's recommended if you're planning on buying only one type of blade. Even though you see a lot of people using this one, we'll come to that in a minute. It enables you to perform a variety of tasks, including heavy-duty cutting on thicker materials, carving, slicing, trimming. You can use the point. Obviously, you can rock it, so you can cut through a tube, and then you've got this long edge for cutting down on things like square rod and that sort of stuff. So really, really good. It's also very good for scraping. So you can scrape, and if you want to scrape a shape, you can do that quite easily with this. So it's generally a good all-rounder, thus why it's basically known as a general purpose blade. So yeah, and it's probably the blade I use second most out of the X-Acto craft blade range. So yeah, there's a tendency to use the number 11 a lot, so let's talk about that. So this is the number 11 blade, and a lot of people get mixed up with this and the number 2 blade. There is a difference, although at first glance you'd struggle to see it, and the difference actually is the thickness of the blade. So because the number 11 blade is thinner than the number 2 blade, and as a result that means you've got a finer cutting edge and a finer shoulder. So all of these blades are sharpened in the same way using wire brushes. So you have a wire brush that's rotating, and the blade comes in and it puts an edge on it. That's how it's done. It's the same basic process that they use for making razor blades. So because the metal is a bit thinner, you get a slightly sharper shoulder on it, and that gives you a sharper cutting edge. So it's a fine point blade, perfect for doing precision and detailed cuts. You can get right in with the point there, and often you find that's the bit that goes first, that it snaps. But it means you can use it to cut elaborate and intricate shapes without difficulty, and it becomes a lot of modelers' go-to blade because it's got that flexibility and you've got the long cutting edge, so you can actually roll it on a tube and cut through it. And you can actually cut rod, and you can cut straight down and cut through plastic nibs on your sprue and that sort of stuff. So, you know, modelers tend to use it, I would argue, more than the general purpose blade, but there's probably not much in it. There's probably people that prefer this, and some people that prefer this, and some people who have, like me, multiple knives with the blades ready to go. So it's really your choice, your style of modelling, what you do. I generally find I use the number 11 more than I use the general purpose. But in fact, I have a completely different blade that we'll talk about at the end. But yeah, that for me, for most modelers, if you are looking for just one blade, is probably the number 11 for most plastic only modelers who are just going to build out of the box, and you know, that will do the job. And a lot of sort of purpose bought craft knives just look like that as a result. Now, I seem to recall originally the set came with the two standard carving blades. So one was like a hook. So if you've got one of those in your set, the concave hook is a carving blade. So for whittling type of actions, for want of a better word. And then you might have one that looks a little bit like this, but has a shorter blade, probably ends about there, and that's a curved carving blade. So the next blade we're going to talk about is this one here, and this is a deburring blade. So as the name suggests, it's for deburring, and that's if you're not aware what deburring is, it's the process of removing any sort of leftover raised edges after you've been cutting or sawing or drilling or what have you. So this can also be used for stripping because it's got quite a nice long blade edge, and you know, it's quite good for cutting bits of rubber or thick foil or lead foil and that sort of stuff. I found it's quite good for. So yeah, I mean, it's not dissimilar to the number 11, but you've got a different angle. So yeah, that's what it's intended for. Now, these three blades are all chisels, although strictly speaking, this is a carving blade and sort of goes with the gougers. And the reason why it has this sort of crimped look to the end is it's designed to go into this heavy duty handle because of its use as a carving knife. You want a better grip, you want to be able to put a bit of oomph behind it. You're not really using it like a pen, like you might do with a craft knife. So this also has a hole in it to allow you to put a saw in, but you can put the blades into that and it keeps it stable and square, and there you go, you can carve away till your heart's content. I do sometimes have issues with this handle, trying to loosen the collet, which is why it looks a little bit jarred up, but yeah, it's effectively a wood carving chisel, whereas these are more sort of craft chisel, and they're the two main types of chisel blade. So you've got the regular, and then you've got an angled, and you can see the angled's got a slightly longer blade, and in many ways it's a shorter version of the deburring blade, but a regular blade can also come in light duty and heavy duty versions, which are smaller and larger respectively, and the chiseling blade is designed with a thin profile for removing fine layers of material and creating detailed patterns on your workplace. So out of the two, I've used this the most, and you can see it's a bit rounded on the edges. I need to sharpen it and straighten it up a little bit, but I've used this a lot, and it has a bit of flex in it as well, I find. So, you know, you can, when you put this in your knife, I'll just remove this one, it stops there, and so that's you've got quite an extended length on the blade, which is longer than other chisel blades, which might only go sort of that far out. So it does give you a long reach, and it has got a little bit of flex in it, so you can put a little bit of oomph behind it and still not lose control. So I really like this blade, and I use it a lot, which is why it looks like it's been used a lot. This one I use less often. I have certainly used it, but it depends on the type of job and the angle that you need to do and get in. And you can see I have actually used it for filling before now as well. It's been quite a good applicator when you want to smooth the filler down, which is why it's covered in filler, I guess. So yeah, that's that blade. And then we've got this one. This is the number 25 blade. And like the other blades, it's a carbon steel blade, but this one is designed for heavy duty work. So whereas a lot of these are for light duty, this will get you through some tougher jobs. If you do a lot of dioramas, this is absolutely a blade that you need, because it will cut through foam beautifully. It'll cut through plastic card beautifully, cardboard, thick cardboard, cork, metal, even linoleum. I mean, yeah, I used it once when I was fitting flooring in my bathroom many years ago. But yeah, you can use it to cut through some types of wood, rubber, you name it, this blade will do it. And you can probably see I've resharpened this a number of times. It's an excellent blade. I don't use it a lot actually for plastic modelling, but when I do a diorama it often comes out. So I find that a really handy blade. Now these last two blades I want to talk about, these actually aren't X-Acto blades, they're cheap alternatives, and you can see instantly the difference in the quality. I can flex that and I can't really flex these. Even the number 11, which is a thin blade, it's a bit harder to flex. So these are cheap blades. They came with a cheap knife, and I'd really recommend you don't get a knife like this, because those rubber bits there, they slip and they can cause an accident. In fact, I think these are really dangerous. Cheap Chinese knives, and you see them in craft shops, and actually they're not very stable. I'll show you now. That's not really long enough, so they come loose a lot when you're using them. I just think they're really, really dangerous. But I did have these in X-Acto versions once upon a time. What happened to them, I don't know. So let's just talk about these. So this is a cranked blade, and it extends beyond the knife handle, and it drops down like so. So this allows you to get into some awkward places, and that's its common use for awkward and difficult cuts, particularly in places where the knife handle would otherwise be unable to reach. So not really a blade that you would use a lot, but I also find it's quite good as a scoring blade as well. So yeah, but yeah, that's the idea of it. That's why it's got a small blade edge, and that's why it's cranked. It's to get into difficult to get places. And then finally this thinner blade. Now on the X-Acto version, I think it's a bit cranked like this, but it's not got the sort of curved cutouts. It's more angled, and this is a scoring blade. And the idea of the short blade is it will allow you to easily change direction during a cut and enable you to carry on the cut in a different direction without having to take the blade off, something that you might struggle to do with other blades. So it's used for intricate and detailed cuts, which should allow you to work without doing any tears in your material or something like that. So when I was younger, I used to use these for cutting out decals until I realised that scissors was a better way to go. But it's probably the most precision blade of all of these. Now this cheap one's got terrible, it's got a lump on the blade where it's not been cut properly, so this one needs to be sorted out. But if you get the proper X-Acto version, you'll get a proper carbon steel blade that you'll be able to keep resharpening and use for your lifetime. You'll only ever need one blade, and that's the same with all of these X-Actos. You can sharpen them with a whetstone yourself. Just put the heel back on, and away you go. And you can sharpen them over and over again. You never need to buy new blades for X-Acto knives. Some other types you might want to buy replacement blades periodically. I do have a set of number 11s, but again they're all X-Actos, and I got about 10 maybe 20 years ago, and I think I've got 8 that I've not used yet, so that'll see me out, no doubt. So yeah, that's what that's for. It's a scoring blade, so great for cutting bits of plastic card and that sort of stuff, or if you want to gently score panel lines, you can do that. This is a good alternative. It's narrower than most scribing tools, so you can do some really delicate, intricate work on there if you wish. So yeah, can be a handy blade to have. But actually, for my modelling, I tend to use this knife a lot. You'll have seen me in my builds using this knife, and this is actually a woodworking knife. It's a carving knife in actual fact, and it comes with a very, if we can get this out, very short narrow blade, and that allows me to get into small areas. It behaves very much like a number 11 blade, but because it's shorter, I feel I have more control over it. It's great for cutting little bits out of sprues. It's great for cutting nubs off in a controlled fashion. It's great for getting into detail on figures and scraping off the mold seam. It's brilliant, and it came with all of these blades that I've never used because I resharpen them. So I've got loads and loads of blades here that I can go to. So again, this will probably last me a lifetime. And although the actual handle itself is not as good a quality as an X-Acto, it's not aluminium, it's plastic. And the collar is cheaper, and you can see it's plated and the plating's coming off, so it looks scruffy, but it is actually a really comfortable knife to use, and I use it a lot. And it does have the advantage, unlike X-Acto knives, that it does have a cap. So and the cap has a flat edge to stop it rolling. So yeah, I use that a lot. Don't get me wrong though, I love my X-Acto knives. I've had these knives since I was 15, which is a very long time ago now. So 1985 I got these, and they have done me proud, and they're still going, and I have no doubt they'll be in my coffin with me when I go. So there you have it. That is a brief explanation of the main basic knife blades that you will come across in a craft tool set, or that you can buy in some of the hobby shops. There are variations, obviously. Different brands do it slightly differently. These are chisels, angled and straight, and they're sort of smaller or different way of cutting the blade out. But generally, I find that X-Acto blades are the best craft knife blades. Now, it's a little bit personal because some people really swear on scalpels, and scalpels are razor sharp. The difficulty with scalpels is I really genuinely hate the handles. They're difficult to pick up because they're flat, and the locking mechanism isn't really ideal for lots of heavy duty work, because at the end of the day, a scalpel is used for surgery. It's designed for surgery ultimately, and those blades are much more difficult to sharpen, and you end up spending a lot of money replacing the blades, even if you don't get sort of original Swan Morton blades or something like that. So for me, the X-Acto blades are the way to go, because they will last you a lifetime if you look after them and keep resharpening them. A whetstone like this doesn't cost very much. You can get it in most machine tool shops and places like that online will have them. I have a number of whetstones. I've got this one, which is a very fine one, which I borrowed from my dad when I was, I don't know, 12 or 13, and he's not come looking for it yet. And then I have a couple of little coarser ones, and that one's for a lawn, for sharpening a lawnmower blade. But actually, it's really good when you want to clean up things like putty and stuff off them. They're really good. It's really good for a good clean up first. And all you need to do is wet them and rub the blade on at your angle, and put your heel back on, and then you're nice and sharp. And if you've got one of those, like I say, they don't cost much. You can look after your knife blades, and they will last you a lifetime. So there you go. That's your insight. If you weren't aware what all the different knife blades are for, there you go. And if you were lucky enough to get some of these, you might want to take up wood carving or welding or something. Don't know. Thanks for looking in. Hope that was useful. You enjoy your modelling, and I'll see you very soon. Bye for now.